Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Rabbi John Bruce. I'm the senior rabbi here at Temple Sinai. It's my honor on behalf of our congregation to welcome you to have this JCRC annual meeting here, the honorees, the board members, the friends, the supporters. This is a critical time for our community and for our world. The turbulence within which we are living requires both strong community and leadership, and we are proud to see that in JCRC and are grateful to have you here in this space tonight. I just want to open with a word of Torah from the Psalms. As you entered our congregation through what's now our new entrance, there were on the wall there, you may not have seen them, words from Psalm 118. It says in Hebrew, Pitchu li sha'arei tzedek, avovam odeya. Open for me the gates of righteousness, that I may enter them and offer praise or gratitude. Those words were selected purposefully because, among other things, we hope that they remind anyone who enters this space, particularly members of our community and our leaders, that there are at least two dynamics that are at play when we want to build community and provide leadership for our community. One is that we know that there are powers beyond our control that can open those doors for us. We don't gain our positions or our position. The strength of our community is not entirely in our hands. Whether you think theologically or culturally, there are things to which we turn to and that we hope will open those doors for us, particularly the doors of righteousness. But also, as it says, avovam, that I will then enter them. That it is a decision and a choice to enter those doors and to recognize those opportunities when they're given to us. The opportunity and the decision to remain part of this community, to commit ourselves to it, to build the partnerships among Jewish people, friends, and allies around the world, that we may all enter into this space that is reflective of gates of righteousness. And that in so doing, we can then offer gratitude, God willing, looking back at the opportunity to have built a world of goodness, of peace, of a strong Jewish community, and a world committed to the values that have kept our people strong throughout the millennia. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you to the honorees, to the board members, and to all of you. Gil, I'll turn it over to you next.
So, is this on? Hello? Yes. So I think we're going to keep on moving around to keep you on your toes so you don't know where the next speaker is going to come next. So my name is Gil Preuss. I'm the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Greater Washington. It is really my honor to be here tonight. The JCRC has played such a vital role in sustaining the strength of this Jewish community, not only for the past year, but for decades and decades. In the midst of constant change and challenges that we face as an American society and as a Jewish community, the JCRC is always there. It adapts to the times, it focuses on the most critical issues, and it makes sure that we stay strong as a Jewish community and as a Jewish people. Over the past couple of years, there's no doubt that these have been very trying times. Whether it's issues happening overseas or locally, the role that JCRC, under the leadership of Ron Halber, has played has been critical for this community. And so I just want to thank everyone here who steps up and joins the work that we have at hand, who puts their time into this, and really makes sure that we as a community stay strong. One thing that I always want to do is I want to make sure that as we thank all of the people, that we also focus on all of the professionals and staff who work at JCRC. My guess is that few people here know how incredible they are, I hope you do, and how much time and effort and care they put into everything that they do. So please tonight, when you see every single one of them, make sure to thank them personally for their time and care that they put into this. It is not simply a job, it is not simply a role, It is a commitment to our collective future that drives them every single day. So for that, I thank you. And finally, I just want to say congratulations to Andrew on your award this evening. I can think of no one more deserving. Your commitment to this community, to this region, to not only the Jewish people, but also the world in which we live, is matched by no one else. And so you have been a true leader at every level, and I thank you for that. And I'm sure there will continue to be many great things ahead for you and for us as a community. So thank you for that. And finally, just to really, again, everyone here, every year I hope, okay, maybe there'll be quieter days ahead. Maybe something will calm down. Maybe the craziness in the world in which we live will just cease and we'll be able to focus on the things that we are supposed to focus on. And I kept on saying to myself that for probably at least 5 years now, since the beginning of COVID. And I've come to realize that that actually shouldn't be an aspiration, because the reality is the things that we need to be focusing on are the things that are being presented to us every moment of every day. That is how we create the change that we need to create. It's not by having a schedule of things that we planned that we want to do, but it's in responding to the immediacy of those things in front of us and doing it effectively and building community and making the case for who we are and where we need to go through every one of those interactions. And so I no longer aspire to the calmness, though it would be nice every once in a while. I no longer aspire to kind of some form of days that used to exist, but my hope is that we collectively can repeatedly and continuously effectively address every challenge that comes up and that we face, and I know that with all of you, we'll be able to do that together. So thank you. I look forward to addressing many more challenges and opportunities that we have as a community jointly, and I look forward to the rest of this evening. Thank you.
Good evening. I was going to start over there, but I thought I would come around the other way. I'm Thorne Posen, and it is my pleasure to be serving as the chair of the JCRC's 2025 Nominating Committee, which is a role traditionally filled by the agency's immediate past president, which I can now say with experience is the best title to have. Bob, you will see, and there are many past presidents here, but immediate past president, you still get asked to do nice things, but you don't have the day-to-day worries and tribulations that the president has. So I'm really pleased to be there, to be in that position. On behalf of my fellow board members and colleagues and the JCRC professional staff, I wanted to welcome everyone to the 2025 annual meeting. First, I want to take a second to thank Gil for being here and for your good words earlier. Here's some notes for me. And your support, unwavering support for the last, for as long as you've been in your position, I'm not going to say how long that was, has been tremendous and something that's been truly wonderful. So thank you for that on behalf of my colleagues on the board of the JCRC. And Rabbi Roos, I am just incredibly pleased to be here. Thank you for hosting us. I think the last time that I was on the Bima, and it was not nearly this high. It's kind of intimidating up here, but things have been renovated. I hope you all enjoy the beautiful renovation that's happened here at Temple Sinai. But I think the last time I was on this Bima was for the bat mitzvah of my younger daughter. My older daughter was also bat mitzvahed and confirmed here It is, I think, I can consider it my synagogue. I don't know, maybe it's our synagogue, but it is good to be home, good to be back, and again, thank you for hosting us. I am called upon to take on a lot of wonderful roles as immediate past president. I've been asked to take on the business portion of this, so I'm standing kind of between you all and some awards and some wonderful speakers. So I'll try to move forward with this with good dispatch, although we have a tremendous number of very, very talented people who are going to be joining us on the board with your all's approval. So I will try to move forward quickly on there. I want to, I guess, before I jump into that, start by saying that serving as a president was one of the true honors of my professional life. It was a privilege, and it gave me real appreciation for both the lay leadership and my colleagues on the later leadership, and as well as the professional staff. You heard accolades to our CEO and President Ron Halber. They are especially apt. It's been a very, Gil mentioned, I mean, it has been a very difficult time these last couple of years. And Ron, you've led us through that with great grace and tenacity, and it's been a pleasure working with you and getting to see that. I'm very pleased to have been able to pass on the presidency to Bob Budoff, who you'll hear from again. And I realize it's your second year, Bob. You're halfway through, and this time flies like that. It's incredible, but it's been a great honor to serve in this role previously as president, and look forward to continue working with you, Bob, and the team, and all of your good work. I also want to be sure to acknowledge my fellow nominating committee members, most of whom are here tonight. So if you're on the nominating committee, if you would raise your hand, and we can maybe give you a round of applause for all of your work. Thank you. Because it's hard. I mean, there were a lot of very, very talented people who put their name in. In fact, I believe the number was 6 times the available positions. People applied for this position. I also want to acknowledge Joe Sandler, past president and consigliere, maybe I think is the right word, who has allowed us to move forward with our bylaws in a way that we will now be finally filling out. So I think, Ron, you made reference to that in the other room a minute ago, but I think this is now the first time when we will be fully executing on the vision that you, the other staff, and Joe, you were able to bring us to it. So thank you for that. And I will say, lastly, it was an incredibly impressive group of people who put their name in, and it was a very, very difficult decision. But without further ado, I will like to present the slates of candidates for approval by the board. We're going to do this in 5 groups. We had 4, but there's an additional vote I think that we need. Yes, I'm going to go with yes on that. So we'll do it in 5 groups with 5 separate votes. And I think I know most everyone's name, but if I do butcher your name, please forgive me. I will do my best not to do that. So let me take this in turn. The first vote will be the nominating committee recommendations for following board members who will serve as community representatives. They will be re-elected. So they are current community representatives looking to be re-elected for an additional term. And they are Judith Vogel, Marion Goldberg, Susan Jerson, Alan Schulman, Larry Haas, Susan Crystal, Rabbi Jonathan Miller, Larry Seidman, Isaac Snyder, and that's it. So those people will be are now on the slate here for a second term. Is there a motion to accept those people. So moved. It's been moved. And is there a second for that? Second back there in the vest. And all those in favor, please raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Oh, I think that might be unanimous. Any abstentions? With that, congratulations to that first group. Okay, moving right along, our second vote, slightly smaller group of folks, is the nominating committee's recommendations for the following individuals to be elected for their first term as community representatives. So these are the not the returning people, but these are new people to come in. And there are, I think, just a few of them. Alan Freeman, Ellen Kagan, Ellie Kagan, Benjamin Klubas, Julie Sapper, Andrea Stillman, and Jeffrey Rubin. All right. Is there a motion to accept those folks as new representatives, community representatives for a first term? That's been moved. Is there a second? Second over here. Thank you. And all those in, any discussion? No. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Any abstentions? All right. Congratulations. Getting through this third vote. This is representing the nominating committee's recommendations for board members representing one of the denominations. And they are looking to be re-elected to serve an additional term. It's just one person, Rabbi Gary Pokris, representing the Reform Movement. Any discussion on that? Okay, motion to accept. It's been moved. Is there a second? Second right there. Thank you so much. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye or raise your hand. Aye, raise your hand. Any opposed? None. Any abstentions? Congratulations, Rabbi Pokris. Okay, we got a fourth, and then there's one more after that. So our fourth is the nominating committee recommendation for the following individuals representing organizations and denominations, and they will be serving a first term. They include Rick Goldstein, representing the AJC, and is currently a community rep, but is moving over to as a organizational representative. Sarah Power, representing the JWI. Aline Schneider, representing Hadassah, and Beth Mitchell, who will represent the National Council of Jewish Women. Is there a motion to accept those? It's moved over here. Is there a second? Second right in the front. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? None. Congratulations. Okay. All right, we got one more, and that is a nominee at the urging and discretion of the president, Mr. Budoff. The president is entitled to up to 5 board members to appoint up to 5, and in this case, he'll be appointing 1, and that 1 is June Trone. And that is correct. We didn't have a chance to talk about this, but I got your email. So is that right? Yes? Good, good, good. So there are already 4, and we have 1 vacancy. That's why there's only 1. Okay, thank you. I don't know if you heard that. There were 4, now there's 1 extra. That's 5. So with that, Ms. Trone is up before you. Is there a nomination? What do you want to call it? It's movement, a motion, and it's moved. Thank you. And is there a second? It's seconded. And is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Any abstentions? With that, Ms. Trone, congratulations. Okay. So we got through our business portion of the meeting, and what you've been waiting for is to hear from our president, who I think you can do one of two things. You can go up the ramp and then these stairs, or you can go around what I did, stairs and there, or you can go over here, or around there, whichever you choose. Anyway, with that, I turn it to the president, Mr. Bob Budoff.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Bob Budoff. I'm JCRC's board president, and it is an honor being president of the board, I can tell you that, one of the greatest ones I've had. As a constituent of Gerald Conley during his decades of public service and as one of his many friends in Northern Virginia and in the Jewish community, I want to express my deep personal sadness, as well as my heartfelt sympathy for his wife, Smitty, and his daughter, Caitlin, on his passing early today. He was a dedicated public servant who stood up for his constituents and was a strong advocate for federal workers and the people of Northern Virginia. He also was a good friend of the Jewish community and the state of Israel. Among many of his many accomplishments, one that I will always remember was his important leadership more than 3 decades ago in support of the plans to build the JCC of Northern Virginia, which is now the Poses JCC, in the face of strong opposition by some of the surrounding communities based on NIMBY, not in my backyard. His door was always open. He was warm and engaged, truly interested in hearing your concerns and improving the community and the nation for everyone. He will be sorely missed. Zichrono livracha. If you would all please rise, if you can, for a moment of silence. Now I can turn to the evening's business. Thank you all for being here this evening as we welcome JCRC's newest board members. We're especially grateful to have Amy Spitalnick and Aaron Dorfman with us tonight for what should be a terrific discussion about the Jewish role in preserving democracy. Amy and Aaron both came down from New York to be with us, and since Ron and Gila both hail from Brooklyn, and this was not in my remarks, but I'm from Long Island, hopefully both of you will feel at home. And finally, Yasha Koach, to the inaugural recipient of JCRC's Community Champion Award, Montgomery County Councilmember Andrew Friedson. If every public servant was more like Andrew, we'd all be better off. You'll hear why shortly. We once again meet at a trying time. War continues in Gaza amid a deepening humanitarian crisis. Dozens of Israeli hostages remain in captivity, even as some have finally been returned. Hamas is still intent on using whatever power and authority it has to wreak devastation on Israelis and Palestinians alike. Here at home, anti-Semitic attacks continue to set records each year. It is, by just about any metric, a hard time to be Jewish, but not tonight. Tonight, I feel strengthened, empowered, and yes, even hopeful. That's because of the incredible work that JCRC does each day to advocate for Jewish families in our region, support Israel, and uphold Jewish interests and values around the world. JCRC has been engaged in this work for decades, and we honor and appreciate that long history. But it is our work since October 7th, 2023, that has truly met the moment. Following the horrific massacre of Israeli civilians that day, the JCRC instantly galvanized the Jewish community by holding the first mass rally in the nation with more than 3,000 people attending from across the DMV. That was just the start. Since then, we have built an unmatched advocacy record. We mobilized support to defeat a series of anti-Israel resolutions at the state and local levels, part of our ironclad commitment to support Israel's right and responsibility to defend itself. We secured more than $13 million in insecurity funding for synagogues and other Jewish institutions across the DMV, including $370,000 here in DC, where we spurred the creation of the first such fund in the city's history, providing both capital and operating dollars to ensure Jewish families can worship and gather safely and securely. We successfully advocated the passage of legislation combating anti-Semitism in Maryland, expanding hate crime laws in Virginia, and restoring early childhood education funding to support Jewish preschools in DC. But the fight to support the Jewish community isn't just in state houses and city and county councils. Winning hearts and minds goes well beyond legislation and funding. That's why we have also led responses to crisis-level anti-Semitism rates in local schools, including direct responses to more than 150 incidents in the region. We brought Holocaust survivors and descendants to address more than 10,000 students and educators during the 2023-2024 school year alone. Expanded our flagship student-to-student program that trains 120 Jewish teens annually to speak to more than 1,500 fellow students about Jewish beliefs, customs, and experiences, and connections to Israel, the Holocaust, and anti-Semitism. And we strengthened interfaith and intergroup coalitions to promote peace and shared values through the programs like Sharaka and Israel-Palestinian Youth Coexistence Delegations. Tonight, we pause for a moment to reflect on all that we have done, but also how much more there is left to do. I'm energized by our new board members who will provide fresh voices and ideas. I'm optimistic that with policymakers like Councilman Friedson, who have our back, we'll continue to make important legislative progress across our region. I'm confident that Jewish life will continue to thrive throughout the DMV, and that we can continue to serve as a model for organizing and advocacy across the country. I'm hopeful that when we meet next year, every person still held in captivity by Hamas will be home with their families, and that Israelis and Palestinians will be living in peace. The reason why I'm feeling all of this tonight is simple, all of you. Thank you for the honor of serving as your board president and for all that you do on behalf of our community. I just have one closing remark, and that's that we are honored tonight to have Oye Owalua, and I hope I didn't mess that pronunciation, who is the DC Shadow Representative. Was that okay? My name is Budoff. I get called Budoff all the time, so thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Benon Dayanim, and I have the honor of serving as Vice President of JCRC. And it's my privilege tonight to be presenting our inaugural JCRC Community Champion Award. The JCRC Community Champion Award was created to honor an individual who has demonstrated outstanding dedication, leadership, and advocacy in support of JCRC's values and priorities that advances the well-being of the Jewish community. In other words, this award recognizes not just one or two or three noteworthy accomplishments, but a body of impactful work that truly reflects who that person is, someone who models the midot, the values that we as a community wish to reflect. I am so proud to announce this year's recipient, Montgomery County Councilmember Andrew Friedson. In 2018, Andrew made history when he became the youngest person ever elected to the council, and again when he was elected as the council's president in 2023. What has emerged in just a few short years is an outstanding legislator and tireless advocate. His strong work ethic, enthusiastic leadership, and ability to forge consensus, even in this politically polarized time, is a model for all legislators to follow. Simply put, Andrew gets results for our community. He spearheaded the creation of Montgomery County's signature nonprofit grant security program, which provides security dollars for houses of worship and other nonprofits. Jewish and other communal institutions have received millions of dollars under this program. He led the successful passage of a council resolution in 2022 adopting the IHRA gold standard definition of antisemitism to protect Jewish children and families. He sponsored the zoning text amendment that allowed Bikur Cholim to establish a kosher kitchen, which enables them to provide deeply needed meals for residents while they are receiving medical assistance. But his record speaks to someone who doesn't just fight for the Jewish community, but for everyone in Montgomery County. Creating the New Jobs Initiative, a $20 million program to create high-paying jobs, support entrepreneurship, and innovation. Launching a $100 million revolving housing production fund. Spearheading record climate investment. Providing paid parental leave for county employees. Ensuring support for nonprofits to provide social services. Leading the way on restorative justice practices, and helping to right the historical wrongs faced by the Scotland AME Zion Church and Emery Grove communities. These are just a few of the things that Andrew has accomplished in such a short period of time. More than 1 million people live in Montgomery County. All of us, regardless of our race, background, income level, or faith, are fortunate to have Andrew in our corner. JCRC is proud to call him one of our own, and we look forward to working together for years to come. Please join me in congratulating the inaugural recipient of the JCRC Community Champion Award, a good man, a fine legislator, and a true leader, Montgomery County Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Ben, my friend, thank you so much. I am so deeply humbled by this recognition, I'm almost speechless. Almost. To Ron Halber, to the executive committee, to each of you, words can't really express just how moved I am, how humbled I am, how honored I am by this award and to be before you today. I'm accepting this award in memory of my dad and in honor of both of my parents, my mom, who's here with us today, sitting next to my beautiful wife. My Jewish values are the greatest inheritance my parents have given me. And in every role I serve, from elected official to volunteer to citizen, I will always do all that I can to live by those values, to lead with those values, and to lift up those values in our community. Many of you here knew my dad, and you've probably heard me say that my personality comes from my incredible mother, the strongest, most energetic, most loving and reliable person I have ever known. My dad is the why I do what I do. Everybody always talks about my mom and my personality of the how I do what I do. But my dad truly is the why. He's the reason behind my ongoing commitment to fairness and justice. He is and has always been my North Star and my moral compass. Working with JCRC to combat anti-Semitism before and especially after October 7th, protecting our buildings and institutions at risk of experiencing hate crimes, supporting our Jewish community social service providers who put our faith into action each and every day, with volunteers, with lay leaders, and with hard-working, incredible staff who dedicate their lives to the work. It reminds me that representing this community, the only place I've ever called home, isn't a career choice, it's a calling, or as we might say, it's in my kishkas. Those kishkas, those guts, I get those from my dad. They're his guts. They're his kishkas. And I carry them with me every single day. The Jewish community faces a defining and challenging moment as we move into the next chapter, as we have in so many other chapters throughout our history, which is why this organization, the Jewish Community Relations Council, is so important and is more important than ever. And it's why Jewish institutions more broadly are more important than they've ever been before, certainly in my lifetime, and I think in all of our lifetimes. Together, we must call out Jew hatred in all its forms, from wherever and from whomever it manifests. We must build alliances with other faiths and other cultures and other communities. And we must never waver from being proudly Jewish. In the end, being unafraid and undeterred to be who we are is the greatest and most significant way that we can fight back against anti-Semitism. To stand up and to be counted unapologetically. As others try to tear us down, we must respond by lifting each other up, living and leading with our time-honored traditions and values. That's what JCRC does every single day. That's the work. That's what you do. That's why I am so honored to be with you here today, to be your partner, to walk alongside you each and every day, because this work, your work, our work, is more important than it's ever been before. The Jewish people have always been a shining light for humanity. As those try to extinguish our light, shining that light as strongly and as brightly as we can possibly shine it is going to be more tested, yet more important than it has ever been. So with deepest gratitude to all of you in my dad's memory, in my parents' honor, I humbly accept this award. It will display proudly in my office, and it will remind me every time I look at it of my dad and of the values that he instilled in me. I hope to work as hard as I can for as long as I can to deserve it, and I hope that as I do that I will make him proud. Before I close, I just wanted to acknowledge that Delegate Jared Solomon, the co-chair of the Maryland Jewish Caucus, is here. I want to thank him for joining us and for all of his work in Annapolis and at the state level. And just want to thank each and every one of you for not just being here tonight, not just being part of this organization, but everything that all of you do each and every day to uplift our community, to live by, to live for, and to stand up for our people, for our values, and for our community. It is truly, truly my honor to be here with you tonight, but just as importantly, for every other day as we do the work in our community. So with pride and purpose, may we go together from strength to strength. Thank you.
Good evening, and hopefully everybody can hear me. I think we're on. I just want to say a personal mazel tov to all the new board members in every category that there is, to all of our guests, and especially to you, Andrew Friedson. I do not live in Montgomery County. I swim across the river to get here. But when I heard of your accomplishments just here this evening, it was really just wonderful. This is a tough world right now, so thank you for all you do, and to your family. Best wishes. And good evening and welcome to everybody that I haven't already welcomed. If I don't know you, I'm Cookie Heimer-Blitz. I am a past president of JCRC, and as you can see, we have a lot of past presidents. Many of them are here this evening doing all kinds of great things. I think that's one of the most rewarding parts of JCRC, because I was president a little while ago, that so many of our past presidents stay engaged in meaningful ways, which really is very special. in an organizational, institutional sense. I am also the current co-chair, along with Rick Goldstein, of the Domestic Affairs Commission. And in 2023, our committee produced a JCRC policy resolution entitled Protecting Democracy in America and Enhancing Civil Political Discourse, a New Commandment for Our Times. A real mouthful, but we need it. Back then, I personally had no clue just how relevant and meaningful this document would become. Since January 20th, our country has seen a raft of policy changes leading to numerous legal challenges and the potential for a constitutional crisis, although there are many that would say that has already happened and we're in the midst of it. We have also seen public dialogue become ever more toxic and polarized. It's no exaggeration to say that we are all concerned, albeit perhaps for different reasons, about the health of our sacred democracy. Our guests tonight are going to address the Jewish role in preserving that democracy, strengthening election integrity, and bridging the divide so that we can engage in civil, nuanced conversations together. Their full bios are in your program. I encourage you to read them if you haven't already, but for now, let me just introduce Amy Spitalnick, who is the CEO of the Jewish Council for Public Affairs, known as JCPA, and Aaron Dorfman, Executive Director of A More Perfect Union. So welcome, and let's just get right to it. We have a lot to cover. So let's start by asking both of you, what do you see as the top threats to democracy right now?
Well, it's such a pleasure to be here. JCPA is a national partner to JCRCs around the country, and it's a particular pleasure to work with Ron and the JCRC team here, and I'm just so grateful for everything they do, and honored to be a part of this program, particularly with Aaron, who is my neighbor in Brooklyn, and we oftentimes schlep to a city far away to hang out together. Next time at our place. So, look, you know, it's really easy to sort of narrow in on any of the frightening things that are happening right now as the greatest threat. And I would say really it's more the holistic normalization of broader anti-democratic extremism and conspiracy theories, because it's that broader normalization of extremism that underpins all of the things that we're seeing happening. So at their core, conspiracy theories are meant to sow distrust in our institutions and our democracy, to pit communities against one another, to make us believe that our government, that our institutions, that are not actually working for us. And we see how that plays out with their impacts that have increased dramatically over the last, 4 months? I don't even know what time is anymore. And so whether it is these conspiracy theories fueling dehumanizing policies, targeting a variety of communities, including immigrants, diversity, equity, and inclusion writ large, or a variety of other things, whether it's being used to attack the rule of law, due process, fundamental civil liberties, whether it's to attack our institutions, gutting billions of dollars in funding from our academic institutions, from the arts, from a variety of other entities, whether it's weaponizing the federal government, DOJ, and other tools that have been created to effectively suppress dissent and use the levers of the federal government to say, this sort of conversation is okay, and these sorts of perspectives are not. At the core of all of this is this normalization of these conspiracy theories and extremism that are the tools used to then advance this broader attack on our norms and our institutions and the rule of law that have been so central to our safety as Jews and the safety of so many other communities for generations.
Yeah. Plus one to all of that. I'll just, by way of quick introduction, I'm Aaron Dorfman. I run this organization called A More Perfect Union, the Jewish Partnership for Democracy, which is a 3.5-year-old network of about now 200 Jewish organizations around the country that are working together to protect and strengthen American democracy. You asked about the most urgent, right?
You can talk about whatever you like. There's many to choose
from.
So
it's a hot mess out there, but I will say that the way that we are talking and thinking about the threats to American democracy right now starts with a really important acknowledgement, which is that threats to democracy don't exist on one side of the spectrum or the other, political spectrum. There are real and present threats to American democracy that come from the American left. I could go on at length about those. But right now, the greatest threats to American democracy come from the political right. And we tend to talk about those in sort of 4 categories. The first is threats to the separation of powers at the federal level. The executive, since January 20th, has been encroaching on constitutionally mandated powers of Congress and of the judiciary in ways that erode one of the kind of core principles of American democracy, which is that power should be decentralized, right? If you look back at the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, you can read those documents as having essentially one function: no more kings, right? We wanted no more kings, and the way we did that brilliantly, the founders, was to separate power. They gave some power to Congress, they gave some power to the executive, they gave some power to the judiciary, they gave a lot of power to the states so that the federal government wouldn't have it. And the executive under President Trump since January 20th has been steadily eroding that set of separation of powers. That's a real problem. The second is attacks on other sources of power that exist outside government, right? One of the other amazing things about the United States is that we've got hugely decentralized sources of power. We have a business community. We have civil society, synagogues, churches, all of the nonprofits that make up American civil society. And the Trump administration has really been undermining the independence of those institutions. Law firms, colleges and universities, threatening to revoke 501c3 status from nonprofit organizations. That's another way that democracy, one of the kind of core bedrock parts of democracy, is being threatened. The third is around civil liberties, right? If the second is threats against institutions, the third is threats against individuals. And that's what we see when people are being arrested and deported without due process, when they're being denied the right the writ of habeas corpus, attacks on individuals, the weaponization of the Justice Department to investigate individuals. There was just an investigation launched against Andrew Cuomo in New York State. Clearly an attempt to intimidate individuals and prevent them from acting out in opposition to the federal government. And the fourth really is to pick up on what Amy was saying, is the undermining of democracy and the kind of valorization of authoritarianism. And this is like a steady drumbeat of criticism of democracy, criticism of our partners around the world who are committed to liberal democracy, and the kind of elevation of authoritarian governments as models of what we should be aspiring to, which is the opposite of the way America has operated historically.
Great, thanks. You know, the Jewish community, like every other community, is made up of various perspectives. So in this diverse, shall we say, climate, how do you bring a specifically Jewish lens to your democracy work, and how can you manage to do that without getting all caught up in partisan battles?
I can start and pass it to Aaron. You know, our work at JCPA is really rooted in the recognition that Jewish safety and inclusive democracy go hand in hand. There's no such thing as truly inclusive, multiracial, multi-faith democracy in America if the Jewish community isn't truly safe. And so too is the Jewish community not safe if we're not protecting our democratic norms and institutions and the rights and safety of all communities. So it's this two-way street. And this is true for a number of reasons. I talked earlier about how conspiracy theories are at the core of this attack on our democracy and how they're used to sow distrust in our institutions. At its core, anti-Semitism is a conspiracy theory. Certainly it's hatred of Jews because of who we are, what we look like, how we pray or don't pray. But anti-Semitism is also uniquely this insidious, pernicious conspiracy theory rooted in tropes and lies about Jewish control and power. We saw it in Charlottesville. I spent years working on litigation against those responsible for the violence. The Jews will not replace us. Conspiracy theory that has also fueled a cycle of broader anti-Semitic, racist, and xenophobic attacks, including the deadliest attack on our community in US history in Pittsburgh in 2018. And those invasion, replacement ideas have really sown broader distrust in our democracy, now underpin specific policies targeting immigrants and other communities, and have become really normalized. And we also see these conspiracy theories on the left, certainly before October 7th, but especially post-October 7th, in conspiracy theories related to Jewish or Zionist control and power, related to our government, related to dual loyalty with Israel, or a variety of the other forms it takes. And so ultimately, we see how anti-Semitism is used as this tool to undermine democracy, to sow distrust in our institutions, and to pit communities against one another in a way that harms not just Jews, but each and every community in our democracy. and so too as democratic norms and institutions, as the rule of law is eroded, it makes things much more likely it makes it much more likely that anti-Semitism will flourish, because the conditions are there for people to be looking for a scapegoat, for things to be going badly, and we know that the Jewish community is so often among the first targeted when that happens. So we're in this feedback loop in which anti-Semitism is increasingly normalized in the form of these conspiracy theories, undermining our democracy. And so too, as democracy is undermined, it makes things less safe for Jews in a way that is ultimately going to not only increase anti-Semitism, but cut to the core of what has really been essential to Jewish safety in this country for generations. And so we can't think of this as a partisan issue. We have to think about it as an issue of fundamental Jewish safety, of inclusive democracy, and of the ways in which these things are inextricably linked. They're not at odds with one another. They're actually one and the same.
Yeah, so I'll again echo what Amy said, and I think the flip side of that story about the threat that anti-Semitism poses to American Jews is the kind of miraculous quality that this country has had for American Jews, right? This is the first country in human history, since in the 2,000 years of diasporic existence for Jews, where we arrived equal partners in creating what America is, right, and what this country is about. There's an amazing clause in Article 6 of the Constitution before the First Amendment, which we lean on so much, that says that no religious test shall be required of any person running for public office in the United States. That was something that had never happened before. So we spent 2,000 years as supplicants dependent on the goodwill of rulers in the countries where we lived. And when we arrived here, we were equal citizens. And that's an extraordinary thing. It's, I think, one of the fundamental necessities behind Jewish thriving in this country. So how do we like navigate that? How do we support that from a nonpartisan standpoint? In our case, we're laser focused on one thing, which is protecting and preserving liberal democracy in this country. And part of how we discipline ourselves around that is that we acknowledge a huge range of diverse perspectives on issues. We don't think about democracy as an issue. Democracy is not an issue. It's the sandbox in which we work out all of the issues that we care about. And we recognize that there are totally legitimate, vehemently strong disagreements around abortion, around gun rights and gun safety, around Israel, around immigration. And we steer widely clear of any of those, because the only thing we care about is preserving the system that makes debate about those issues possible in a way that doesn't allow people to resort to violence. So our dodge is stay clear of everything that people have legitimate disagreements about and harness their collective agreement and commitment to democracy.
Great. And Aaron, you touched on what we've seen very shockingly, at least to me, the arrest of public officials, the judge in Wisconsin, the mayor of New Jersey, lack of due process for individuals who have been deported, arrested, detained, and particularly close to the heart for, I think, everyone in this room, is the wrongful deportation of a Maryland man who still sits in the Salvadorian prison. There have also been public discussions regarding the possible suspension of habeas corpus, which is the requirement of a legal basis for imprisonment. How are your organizations responding to these very disturbing events? And I think you've talked a bit about why it has broader implications or how it does. So any way you want to enhance that for both of you, questions for both of you.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So we have actually been very selective about when and how we use our public voice on these issues, and have spoken up really in two moments when particularly anti-Semitism has been weaponized as part of an attempt to erode democratic norms and institutions. Those two instances were the arrest of Mahmoud Khalil in Columbia University in New York City, and the attack on Harvard University, both of which made us not super popular in certain parts of the Jewish community, but they felt like particular moments where the Jewish community was being used as a wedge to justify things that we consider deeply threatening to democracy. So we spoke out publicly on those. Most of our work, though, has been behind the scenes, trying to sort of elevate and celebrate acts of political courage on the part of the Jewish community, and particularly Jewish leaders. I'll give you one very specific example. About 6 weeks ago, Adam Lehman, who's the CEO of Hillel International, who I'm sure you can imagine has been under some pressure over the last 20 months, right? He's got to have a hard job. Adam Lehman put out a public statement that was a remarkably brave statement. He said, we have a terrible problem with anti-Semitism in this country, and it is affecting Jewish students on college campuses, and that has to end. And our colleges and universities have failed to protect Jewish students from that anti-Semitism. And here's the kicker, we can't allow those needs to be used to violate the free speech and due process rights of other people. And like as soon as we saw this statement come out, we knew Adam Lehman was going to get blasted by certain parts of the Jewish community for taking a step like this. And we organized a bunch of funders and allies of Hillel to reach out to him and get his back and be like, exactly, that is exactly the kind of nuanced stance we need in a moment when we're all being pushed into political binaries. So we're looking for places and spaces where quiet, kind of behind-the-scenes diplomacy can encourage political courage and kind of resist those, particularly the weaponization of anti-Semitism.
Wholeheartedly agree with and echo the importance of everything Aaron just described, including that Hillel statement and the role of sort of stealing other leaders who are sticking their necks out. Our role at JCPA is really twofold. Because we work with JCRCs and others around the country, we also do a lot of behind-the-scenes work to make sure that local communities, whether they are JCRCs and local federations, whether they're rabbis, whether they're national partners, sort of have the tools and resources to navigate these questions, including the exploitation of anti-Semitism in this moment, in a way that is constructive and nuanced and actually, I think, reflective of where the community is. And we can talk more about that, I'm sure, over the course of this discussion. And also at the core, we're a national advocacy organization. We're a public affairs organization. And so our role is really to also help bring together coalitions, both within the Jewish community and across communities, to make clear what our positions and our values are in this moment. And so while it feels like we're drinking out of a fire hose, because we've tried to find the moments where our voice could be most impactful. In early February, we worked with a number of organizations on a statement focused on how we protect the rule of law in this country, how the importance of the rule of law has been to the Jewish community and our history, the weaponization of the federal government, the gutting of federal funding, using it as a tool. This was before the Mahmoud Khalil arrest, before everything that has followed. And I think that was an important statement that sort of drew a line in the sand about where a vast majority of Jewish Americans really are. If you look at the polling, it tells us that Jews are voting on issues like democracy, even if democracy, as I agree with Aaron, is not an issue itself, it's the entire playing field or sandbox, or however you described it. And in particular, right now, we have, since the Khalil arrest at Columbia, also been trying to really carve out this space in the public conversation, that two things are true at the same time. That anti-Semitism is real, and Jewish students and faculty and staff and others are facing legitimate fears and concerns on campus, and we shouldn't be gaslit into thinking that that's not real. There are some trying to tell us that that isn't real. And at the same time, we do not want to see these legitimate fears and concerns exploited to undermine due process, rule of law, our academic institutions, where billions and billions of dollars in cancer and Alzheimer's research and other stuff have been on the chopping block. And we can actually believe that two things are true at the same time. We're capable of holding that nuance. In fact, I think it's where the majority of us are. And so we as JCPA have been out front talking about that quite often since that first arrest in March, but perhaps most notably last month organized a statement of 10 mainstream Jewish legacy organizations, including the conservative, reform, and reconstructionist movements, making clear the same point, bringing together a broad swath of organizations that I think are really reflective of a strong part of the Jewish community, and the polling that's come out since has underscored this, saying that we, again, need to see anti-Semitism confronted in all of its forms wherever it exists, and that we do not want to see these legitimate fears exploited in service of undermining our democracy and our institutions. And that statement itself, I think, really helped make clear both in coalition spaces, for example, JCPA is one of the co-founders of the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights, which is the preeminent civil rights coalition in the country. I proudly sit on its board. We work in a number of different spaces like that. it's really important that we create the tools and the language to show our partners how we can do both things at the same time. How that in fighting the weaponization of anti-Semitism, they also don't have to give an inch in fighting anti-Semitism itself. And that in fact, one is not possible without the other. And it's important not just for creating space within the Jewish community to hold this complex position, but even more so in certain ways to create space outside of the Jewish community for our partners and allies to understand we can do both things at the same time.
You know, you both mentioned, I think you said fire hose, and you said hot mess. So I think, you know, we all feel that way, depending how much of the news you actually watch or read or listen to. People feel powerless and feel very frustrated that they want to do something, they don't know what to do. What would you suggest people do either in their local communities as an individual, something that we can all, besides the great knowledge you've given us, take away with sort of a charge? Sounds like a last question, it's not, but go ahead.
I mean, first and foremost, get involved with organizations like the JCRC. I mean, right, we are going to win these fights, I truly believe, on the local and state levels. We build the democratic resiliency that we need to fight anti-Semitism and broader hate and extremism and protect our communities and our institutions on the state and local levels right now. We build the communities that we need, the coalitions, the bridges. And so being deeply engaged through organizations like the JCRC is so crucial right now in a way that perhaps even a year ago, and it was very, very crucial a year ago, it's even more so now. I also think it's so important to lean into the hard conversations. If you're in this room, right, you're involved deeply in your community, you're a Jewish community leader, you probably are involved in other community institutions, both within and outside of the Jewish community. And the ways in which the zero-sum binary approach to everything we're talking about here, to anti-Semitism, to democracy, right? It is tearing us apart when we need to be building the strongest, broadest coalitions in service of protecting our communities and our democracy. And the way that we actually move forward is leaning into challenging conversations, as my friend Eric Ward likes to say, building the muscle to stay at the table. And we do that by talking to people not only with whom we agree, which I think is a lot easier, but with those on both sides of our political positions with whom we don't agree. And that means having those hard conversations, whether it's through our local politics, our local institutions, on this local school board, whatever it may be, and leaning into them in an open-minded, constructive way that recognizes the only path forward here is one in which we sort of marginalize those extreme voices in both directions and create a coalition of the willing in the middle who are going to be unequivocal in standing up against hate and protecting our democracy right now.
I love all that. And one of the things, Amy, that you just said reminded me of this amazing article. I was just quoting this article a couple of days ago, so I have it fresh in mind. It was actually a speech given by Bernice Johnson Regan, who is one of the members of Sweet Honey in the Rock. I don't know if you're maybe my generation or whatever. Bernice Johnson Regan gave a speech in 1983 called Coalition Politics. And in the speech, she talks about what coalitions are and how important they are. And she draws a really important distinction between home and coalition. And home is where you're with your people, and you're safe, and you're not at risk, and for the most part, people agree with you. And it is really important to have home. But you can't stay at home, because work doesn't happen at home. Work happens in coalition. And coalition, which is those places where people disagree with you and you are uncomfortable and you can get hurt, that's like where you need to go to get work done. And then when you're like tired and it's hard and you need a break, you get to go home and be with your people who agree with you and you're safe. But we've got to spend a lot more time, I think you brought up like resisting the binary between thinking that we can spend all of our time with people who agree with us or we're ever going to get everything we want, and spend much more of the time resisting that kind of binary thinking. So that's like job number one. Job number two is super tactical. This is an odd-numbered year, so there aren't big federal elections, but you know that there are 95,000 seats up for election in the United States in 2025? 95,000, and everyone should vote in every one of them that you're eligible for. Yeah, and once, just once, right? Voting is a habit. The best predictor of a person's vote in an election is whether they voted in the last election. And so building the muscle of civic participation through voting, I think, is absolutely essential. And the third piece of homework that I would give you really echoes what Amy said. Civil society, our network of nonprofit institutions, is the superpower of American democracy. Alexis de Tocqueville didn't use that language, but he saw it when he came to the United States in the early 1800s. Our capacity to self-organize and build power and build community is unparalleled in the world, and you should join, support, encourage the leaders of civil society organizations that you are part of to exercise political courage, get their backs when they do, encourage them to take nuanced positions and support them when they do, even if you're like they're not 100% the thing that you would say. That's an essential role, I think, in this particular political moment.
I'm so glad you brought up elections, because that takes me to my next question because your organization is really engaged in election integrity, protecting voter access, all of those really important issues. So how do we, in this climate, protect and ensure free and fair elections? And I would be remiss if I didn't say there's a really big election, lots of seats, important things in Virginia in November. So we're starting to look, we have a primary in about a month, and then we're going to be headed into election season, which is going to carry a lot of heft, not just to the people of the Commonwealth, but whatever those results are will kind of inform, or often has, the mood of the nation and so forth. So what do you see as the biggest challenges here, and how do we move forward on this really critical goal?
Yeah. So I'm gonna do the easy part first, and then I'm gonna do the part that I told Gil I was gonna do at the beginning. I don't know if Gil's still here, but I said there's a part of this where I'm gonna be like the Grim Reaper, and he was like, "Don't be the Grim Reaper the whole time." So the easy part is vote in every election. It's recruit as many people as you can to serve as poll workers. Not only because there's a massive poll worker shortage in the United States, but also because the more people who are poll workers, the more people of integrity who are poll workers, the more support the election infrastructure has, and the more people are implicated when it is threatened, right? You can imagine that a local rabbi is much more likely to rise up if there's some kind of threat against a particular election if their congregants are serving as poll workers. So poll working, really important. A third piece of the puzzle, particularly since January 6th, is building relationships with local election officials, right? There was a time in this country, it was a wonderful time, I loved it, where the election infrastructure was kind of like public utility, right? It was kind of like the sewers, maybe that's not the right analogy, right? Forgive me, but it worked because we didn't see it. And for a lot of complicated reasons that you all, I'm sure, can appreciate, we see it in a much starker way, and the people who did their jobs with tremendous integrity are now a threatened part of our democratic infrastructure, and they need the support of community leaders. So build relationships with them. Do it now, particularly in Virginia, because in 3 months they aren't going to have time to talk to you, but build relationships with them and support them. Now the part that gets a little more unnerving. We won a battle in North Carolina by ending the Supreme Court fight that was happening there for 6 months. And so far the SAVE Act hasn't passed Congress. But those things are rehearsals for a genuine attempt to subvert a United States, a free and fair election. And if and when that happens, there's going to be a moment, it's like a burning of the Reichstag moment, where Americans will need to decide whether they're going to stand for that or not. And I'll hearken back to an amazing historical example of this in Spain in 1979, 5 years, I think, after Franco died. There was a free and fair election, and the Liberal Party won. And the kind of remnants of the Francoist party said, no, we're not gonna hold by this election. And they brought tanks and the military and marched on Parliament. And the head of the Francoist party And the king, who was a member of that party, locked arms with the Liberal Party leaders and stood in the streets and said, no, we're a democracy now. They went to the streets, and it is possible that we will have to do that. And being prepared to do that is a piece of work. So the homework is to revisit the incredible skill set of nonviolent public protest that this country has been a kind of major part of this country's civil rights fight. There are skills and relationships and power that can be built as part of nonviolent public protest that may be a tool we need to take out of our toolkit. I hope we don't. I really hope we don't. But we don't want to need it and not have had it. So that's another homework assignment, and then I'll stop being the Grim Reaper.
Do you have any comments on it? Okay. Well, then I have a question for you, Amy. Disinformation and misinformation, which fuels so much of this, what I'll just call horror. What advice can you give to effectively confront this? And I don't know if we can turn it around, but do you have any suggestions?
Well, look, dis and misinformation, so I'll say disinformation is sort of intentional bad information, oftentimes promoted by political actors, foreign governments and influence campaigns and so on. And misinformation is generally often unintentional. And it's important to note there was so much happening during the election that I think some in our community and certainly the broader society missed the fact that there were deliberate foreign influence disinformation campaigns targeting not just a whole bunch of us, but specifically the Jewish community. Russia ran a very specific disinformation campaign targeting the Jewish community aimed at pitting us against one another, pitting us against the Black community, immigrants, and so many other different communities, which never mind the fact that our own community is actually quite diverse, and when we think about things in such reductive terms, it's harmful in that way. And there's a DOJ indictment that folks can read from, I think, September. It's worth really reading it because it's a reminder that so much of what we're seeing online and more broadly, including, frankly, in some of the WhatsApp and Facebook groups that we're all in right now post-October 7th because we need that community, some of it's not real and some of it is unintentional misinformation, but some of it is very intentional disinformation aimed at riling us up, aimed at making the Jewish community feel isolated and alone, aimed at pitting us against others, and ultimately aimed at making us believe that democracy doesn't serve us. And we need to be really clear-eyed about that. There are things that we can do. So we work with a number of organizations. I'm on the board of something called Peril right here at American University, the Polarization and Extremism Research and Innovation Lab, which does extraordinary work aimed at sort of inoculating not just kids, but all of us against disinformation, extremism online. We work with organizations like the Center for Countering Digital Hate, which also does really important work on this front. And I did a webinar with Imran, who's the CEO, about a month or so after October 7th. He's a British Muslim man. I'm a Jewish American woman. And we had this very frank conversation about the different dis and misinformation that was being targeted at our communities in the aftermath of October 7th, and the tools that we have to not give oxygen to the worst actors. Our instinct is to quote tweet or share something on Facebook when we see someone attacking Israel or spreading anti-Semitism, right? Our instinct is to want to share that and push back. But when we actually share it, we're fueling an algorithm that lifts up that bad information and that extremism. And so there's very practical tools that webinar I think is on our website, but that our partners at places like Peril and CCDH and elsewhere use. And I think what we can particularly do on the state and local levels through our school boards, through our communal institutions and more, is promote media and digital literacy. Not just for our kids, but frankly for all of us, because we are all susceptible to this. There are curricular, there are programs and tools that we could be advancing to make sure that we are all equipped to be more discerning consumers of social media and of this broader ecosystem in which we know this dis and misinformation has become so pervasive. And so we're not powerless, we just have to be very clear-eyed about the reality, very skeptical, which I think we as Jews are oftentimes pretty good at being, and advance the sorts of policies that we need to actually inoculate and protect ourselves.
Thank you, and we could go on all night, but we won't. And I just want to say a huge Toda Rabah. Thank you so much. This has really been a great conversation. And we very much appreciate both of you coming to join us tonight. And we hope we will see you again soon. And at this point, I am going to turn the program over to our CEO, who I swear never sleeps, Ron Halber.
Amy, Aaron, thank you for coming from the homeland of Brooklyn, where all good things are made. For what a terrific discussion. We really appreciate your insights and your time and expertise. And I was just thinking about feeling bad for the person who had to follow you, and then I realized it was me. Oh well, all right. I'd like to say a few words. First of all, I want to thank you, Rabbi Roos, for opening the doors of literally this new, beautiful synagogue to us. It's just gorgeous, and we're very thrilled to be here. Thorne, our past president, is a member here, and a lot of the board members from DC that he happened to appoint happened to be from Temple Sinai. I want to thank Gil for the wonderful friendship between the JCRC and the Federation, and Cookie, thank you for so skillfully moderating the discussion that we have. JCRC's, I want to thank its invaluable board of directors. Bob Budoff, where's Bob? Bob, you have brought extraordinary leadership to this organization, and it really is a pleasure working with you each and every day. Thorne, to our past president, who did a wonderful job heading the nominating committee, and to the outgoing members whose service has made us better, the new members who will soon make their mark, and the returning members who I know will continue to provide wise counsel. JCRC's tremendous staff, my partner in crime, Gila Franklin Siegel. Please acknowledge Gila. And to all my colleagues who I'd like to stand up and who make this organization day in and day out, I'm proud to call you my colleagues and friends. Anybody? JCRC is up to 15 full-time staff members, 6 part-time, and next year around this time, you will hear about an effort to increase that so we can do our word even more in the future. I want to thank and congratulate our inaugural Community Champion Award, because he really is a champ. Andrew represents a single district in a single county, but his contributions can be felt across the entire DMV. Andrew, thank you. You really do make us proud. And finally, to all of you, thank you for coming tonight. And now a few words. Exactly 77 years and 1 week ago, May 14th, 1948, the new state of Israel was born. And 11 minutes after its founding, the United States government announced its official recognition of the provisional government. And we all know the history. After one day, Arab armies invaded, and the first of many subsequent wars that Israel would have to fight for survival were underway. And that story, and that beginning of Israel, in many ways encapsulates Jewish history, going back thousands of years. We've always seemed to be under attack. Our values always seem to be threatened. Our way of life sometimes always to be seen hanging by a thread. As we meet tonight, and as Bob has referenced before, we're living through both domestically and internationally a time of upheaval. 6,000 miles away, Israel remains at war. Dozens of innocent Israeli hostages remain in Hamas captivity. And the truth be told, the people of Gaza are facing a humanitarian catastrophe. Here at home, tens of thousands of people in our region have suddenly lost their jobs over the past few months. Anti-Semitic attacks in our region and our country are at record highs. And as Amy and Aaron made clear, the future of democracy is unclear at best. All of this is really hard stuff, very hard, but it's not insurmountable. Israel's story is the Jewish story. No matter how hard things get, we fight for ourselves, our families, and our communities. No matter how dire the situation, we pick ourselves up off the mat and live to fight another day. And I can tell you that after being here at JCRC for almost 30 years, that is the absolute best thing about JCRC. We fight, and every day, single day, we fight. We occupy a special place in the world of Jewish advocacy, miles from our nation's capital and the Israeli embassy, in a region that is the home to the third largest Jewish population in the United States. And with that status comes responsibility to use that influence widely and with intention. And so we do. Fight for Israel's right to defend itself and it's for people to live in peace. Fighting for our children to have safe and quality schools. Fighting for women to have the right to make the decisions about their own bodies. Fighting for families to be able to live and worship freely. Fighting alongside our intergroup and interfaith partners to make the DMV an area where everyone, no matter who they are or where they come from, feel welcome. So my message to all of you is really quite simple. Now that more than ever, this is a time to fight. This is no time to be a bystander. The JCRC is not an organization of bystanders. We are an organization of fighters. Whether you are young or old, conservative or liberal, a first-time volunteer or a long-time donor, a new member of the Representative Assembly, Jewish or not, there is a place for you at the JCRC of Greater Washington. We want you here. We need you here. If you're feeling down, this place will lift you up. If you're feeling helpless, JCRC will give you purpose. If you feel like the world is on fire, this place refuses to stand by and let it burn. So join us, work with us, volunteer with us, learn with us, come on board with us. 28 years after I started here, I still wake up every day raring to go, because every day we make a difference. The fight never stops, and neither do I, and neither do we. Thank you for coming. Am Yisrael Chai.